The rain came down in relentless sheets, hammering against the black sedan as it crawled through the narrow streets of Lower Manhattan. Neon lights from half-shuttered stores bled across the windshield, turning the world outside into streaks of red and electric blue. Inside the car, warmth hummed from the vents, but 7-year-old Ethan Whitmore still pressed his small hands together in his lap, uneasy. His father was on the phone again, voice low and clipped, words like board approval and quarterly losses mixing with the rhythm of the rain. Marcus Whitmore looked like a man born to be in control. Even in the dim backseat light, his tailored coat, steel watch, and quiet authority spoke of a world Ethan barely understood. A world of money and meetings and people who always said yes. But tonight something in his father's face was different. Tired, maybe. Older. The driver muttered from the front seat, glancing out the window. "Mr. Whitmore, this route's not familiar. GPS says there's construction ahead." Marcus didn't look up from his phone. "It's fine, just go around. We'll cut through here and get back to Madison in 10. The driver hesitated but obeyed. The car turned down a side street lined with graffiti-stained brick walls and overflowing dumpsters. Streetlights flickered weakly, throwing ghostly reflections on wet pavement. Ethan leaned toward the window, his breath fogging the glass. The city looked different here, emptier, colder, like a place that didn't want to be seen. Then the world exploded. A metallic crash shattered the air as something slammed against the hood. The driver shouted. 2 figures in dark hoodies appeared from the alley, masks gleaming wet in the rain. One swung a metal pipe into the windshield, spiderwebbing the glass. Ethan screamed. "Stay down," Marcus barked, shoving his son to the floorboard. The door ripped open, rain slicing in. A gloved hand yanked Marcus out into the night. "Dad!" Ethan tried to follow, but his father's voice cut through the chaos. Hoarse, commanding, terrified. "Ethan, stay in the car. Don't move," he froze. Through the broken window, he saw the attackers push Marcus against the wall. One demanded something, money maybe, but Marcus didn't have his wallet. The pipe swung again. Marcus crumpled to the ground, clutching his side. It happened fast, too fast for the world to make sense. The men's voices blurred into noise. Then in the distance, sirens. The attackers cursed, kicked Marcus once more, and fled into the rain. For a moment, the alley was silent except for the hiss of rainfall. Ethan crawled out of the car, knees hitting the wet pavement. His father lay still, blood spreading dark and wide beneath him. "Dad," he whispered, shaking him. "Please wake up." Marcus's eyes fluttered, unfocused. His hand twitched weakly against his son's sleeve. "Ethan," he breathed, barely audible. "Run." Ethan hesitated, tears mixing with rain on his cheeks. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to fix it, to make it stop. But the sound of approaching sirens gave him hope. Maybe someone could help. Maybe he could find someone. He turned and ran. His small sneakers splashed through puddles, the cold air cutting his lungs like knives. "Help!" he cried, his voice breaking. "Please, somebody help!" Windows stayed dark. The city didn't answer. The boy stumbled around the corner, calling again, throat raw from screaming. "They hurt my dad. He's dying!" The only reply was the rain and the hum of a flickering streetlight. Then through the blur of tears he saw movement. A small figure crouched near a dumpster, wrapped in a filthy pink blanket. At first Ethan thought it was just another shadow, but then the figure turned, and under a mess of tangled blonde hair, a pair of startling blue eyes locked onto his. He froze mid-step. The girl couldn't have been much older than him, but there was something strange in her stillness, like she wasn't surprised at all to see a boy running through the storm, covered in blood. Ethan's voice cracked as he gasped for air. "Please, they hurt my dad. He's bleeding. He won't wake up." The girl didn't flinch. Slowly she stood, letting the blanket fall to her shoulders. Her voice when she spoke was quiet, rough around the edges but steady. "Show me," she said. And in that moment, amid the rain, the fear, and the darkness, Ethan felt something shift. He didn't know who she was or why her voice carried the weight of certainty, but somehow he believed her. He grabbed her hand, and together they disappeared into the storm. The rain hadn't let up. It came harder now, sweeping down in slanted silver sheets that blurred the edges of everything. Ethan pulled the strange girl by the hand, his small fingers trembling against hers. The city swallowed their footsteps, the sound of rushing water echoing off brick and concrete. When they turned into the alley, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. His father was still there, slumped against the wall, his once white shirt stained deep crimson. The puddle beneath him had grown darker, spreading like ink. Marcus Whitmore, the man who had towered in every room he entered, looked suddenly fragile, his life spilling out in red ribbons. Lily didn't hesitate. She dropped to her knees beside him, her thin frame half hidden beneath the rain. Ethan expected her to scream, to panic like he had, but she didn't. Her face was all focus. Her hands moved with strange certainty, checking his pulse, pressing against his neck, her fingers quick and sure. "He's alive," she said quietly. "Barely." Ethan's voice shook. "Can you help him? Take off your jacket." "What?" Her eyes met his, sharp, commanding, far too old for a face that young. "Do it now." Ethan obeyed, fumbling with the zipper. Lily tore her own threadbare sweater into long strips with a strength that made no sense for someone so small. The rain plastered her hair to her forehead as she pressed Ethan's jacket against the wound, her hands steady, unflinching. "Press here," she said. "Hard as you can. Don't stop." Ethan did as told, his hands trembling as he pressed down on the soaked fabric. Warmth pulsed beneath his palms. His father's blood, life trying to hold on. Lily worked fast, tying the makeshift bandage with her strips of sweater. "It's deep, but it missed the artery. He might make it. How do you know that?" Ethan whispered. Lily didn't answer right away. Her expression flickered, a shadow of something she didn't want to remember. "My dad used to fix people," she said finally. Before everything." Her voice caught for just a moment, then hardened again. "He taught me what to do." Lightning cracked above them, lighting the alley in blinding white. For an instant, Ethan saw the reflection of something fierce in her eyes, not fear, but defiance. She looked around, scanning the darkness. "They might come back." The words sent a shiver through Ethan. "The men?" Lily nodded. "They don't finish clean. If they wanted him dead, they'll make sure." Ethan's pulse quickened. "We have to get help. You can't drag him anywhere. He'll bleed out." Her gaze darted to the end of the alley where the faint wail of sirens began to echo, still distant. "They're close. Just keep pressing." For a moment there was only the rain, the sound of water dripping from rooftops, and Ethan's quiet sobs. Lily leaned close to Marcus, whispering words too soft to hear, like a prayer or maybe something else. Then a noise, sharp, metallic, broke through the air. A bottle tipped over behind the dumpster. Lily's head snapped up. Someone was there. Ethan's heart lurched. "Who is it?" Lily motioned for silence, her hand raising instinctively as if to shield him. She moved with surprising grace. Silent steps through puddles, eyes narrowing toward the sound. A shadow shifted near the end of the alley. A tall figure half lit by the weak streetlight. "Hey!" she shouted. The voice that came out wasn't a child's, it was cold, controlled. "Who's there?" No answer. Just the rain. The shadow hesitated, then bolted. Footsteps splashed away into the street. Lily exhaled sharply, tension draining from her shoulders. "They were watching," she murmured, "maybe to see if he died." Ethan didn't understand, but the words chilled him anyway. A few minutes later, the sirens grew louder, closer, until the alley blazed with red and white light. Paramedics rushed in, voices shouting over one another. "What have we got?" "Adult male, stab wound, pressure's good, pulse weak but steady." "Who did the first aid?" One of them stopped, staring at Lily's work. The perfectly tied pressure wrap, the bandage sealed with just the right compression. "Who did this?" he asked, astonished. Lily said nothing. The medic crouched to her level. "You kept him alive. You saved his life, sweetheart." Ethan turned to grab her hand to tell them it was her, the street girl, but when he looked, she was gone. Vanished into the storm, leaving behind only a strip of pink fabric stuck to the wet pavement. The paramedics lifted Marcus onto a stretcher. One of them touched Ethan's shoulder gently. "You did good, kid. Your dad's a lucky man." Ethan shook his head, voice trembling. "It wasn't me. It was her. She saved him." The medic frowned. "Who, son?" "The girl. The one with the blue eyes." Ethan pointed toward the empty alley. But there was no one there. Only the echo of rain, the glint of neon, and that small strip of pink fluttering in the gutter. Inside the ambulance, Marcus stirred weakly. Oxygen hissed against his mask as his eyelids fluttered open for a brief second. His gaze drifted to the rain-smeared window. "Did you see her?" he whispered. "Who, sir?" asked the medic. The angel? Marcus breathed. Then his eyes closed again. As the ambulance pulled away, the city seemed to swallow the noise behind it, and somewhere out in that storm, a little girl walked alone beneath the glow of a flickering sign, clutching her torn blanket tight. She didn't look back. She couldn't, because Lily Morrison already knew that the men who had come for Marcus Whitmore weren't finished yet, and the blood on her hands had just painted a target on both of them. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room, soft and mechanical against the hush of the hospital. It beeped, paused, and beeped again, a fragile reminder that Marcus Whitmore was still alive. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain, like the storm had followed them here. Ethan sat curled in a chair beside the bed wearing a blanket 2 sizes too big. His eyes were red from crying, but he refused to sleep. He hadn't left his father's side since the ambulance arrived. Doctors had called it a miracle. The knife had missed every vital organ by inches. Whoever gave that first aid, one of them had said, shaking his head, knew exactly what they were doing. Ethan didn't correct them. He'd told the story a dozen times already, but no one believed him. A homeless girl his age, who knew how to stop bleeding and clear airways like a trained medic. The nurses smiled politely, said he must have been in shock. Even the police took notes with that kind of skeptical sympathy reserved for children who mix truth and imagination. Still, Ethan couldn't let it go. He could see her face every time he blinked, the wet blonde hair, the steady blue eyes, the way she'd said "show me," as if she had been waiting for that moment her whole life. When Marcus stirred in his sleep, Ethan reached for his hand. "She saved you, Dad," he whispered. "I swear she did." Outside, reporters crowded near the hospital gates. "CEO survives near-fatal attack," the headlines screamed. But inside, under the soft white glow of the monitors, something quieter was unfolding. The beginning of a bond that would change everything. Across the city, miles away, Lily Morrison sat beneath the old stone bridge on West 39th Street. The storm had faded to a mist, but the night still felt wet and cold. A stray cat crept along the wall near her, its ribs visible under patchy fur. Lily reached into her pocket, pulled out a small tin can she'd found earlier, and set it down for the cat. It approached, cautious but hungry. She watched it eat, her expression unreadable. The pink blanket that had once covered her shoulders was gone now, left behind in that alley beside the man she'd saved. She'd thought about going back for it, but something told her not to. Too dangerous. Too close. For the first time since she'd run from the alley, her hands began to shake. She held them up in the faint light. There was no blood left on them, but she could still feel it. The warmth, the fear, the strange calm that had taken over when the man began to fade. She didn't know who he was. Didn't care at first, but the name she'd heard in passing, Whitmore, wouldn't leave her mind. It stirred something. Some memory she'd tried to bury. Her father's voice echoed in her head, from a time when the world still made sense. "If you ever hear that name, Lily Whitmore, you run." She'd never known why. Until tonight. Back at Mount Si Hospital, the quiet was broken by a soft knock. Ethan turned as the door opened and a detective stepped in. Tall, gray coat, tired eyes. "Ethan Whitmore?" Ethan nodded. The detective crouched beside him, lowering his voice. "I just wanted to say, and you did good, kid. You got help fast. That saved your dad." Ethan shook his head. It was her. The girl, Lily. The detective paused, studying him. "Lily, huh? You remember anything else about her?" Blonde hair, blue eyes. She said her dad taught her how to fix people, like a doctor or something. The detective's expression changed just slightly. "Did she give you a last name?" Ethan thought for a long moment, then shook his head. "No, but she said, before everything." Like something bad happened. The man straightened up, glancing toward Marcus's bed. "We'll keep an eye out. You just rest now." But when he left the room, his voice crackled quietly into the radio clipped to his shoulder. "Dispatch, this is Detective Kellen. Run a check on any minors named Lily, female, about 7 to 9 years old. Possibly connected to the Morrison case from last winter." The name Morrison hung in the air even after he walked away. Somewhere far below the city lights, Lily curled up against the cold stone and tried to sleep. But dreams didn't come easy anymore. When she closed her eyes, she saw fire, faces she couldn't save, her father's voice shouting her name. She jolted awake with a gasp, her heart racing. Rain dripped from the bridge above, one drop at a time. Each sound was sharp in the silence. Then another sound joined it, footsteps. Soft, careful, coming closer. Lily's body tensed. She pressed herself into the shadows, every muscle taut. A figure appeared at the edge of the tunnel, just a silhouette against the pale light. Not a cop, not a vagrant. Someone else, Lily Morrison? A voice called softly. She froze. No one was supposed to know that name anymore. The figure stepped closer, a man in a long, dark coat. His face was hidden by the hood, but his tone was gentle, almost kind. You shouldn't have gone back there. They'll be looking for you. Lily said nothing. They know you're alive now, the man continued. And that boy's father. He's part of something bigger than he realizes. You saved the wrong man, Lily. Her breath caught. Who are you? The man smiled faintly. Let's just say I knew your father. He wanted you safe. But you've just lit a very dangerous fire. He reached into his pocket and dropped something into the puddle between them. A small silver pendant, engraved with an M. Then he turned and disappeared into the mist before she could speak. Lily stared at the pendant. She knew it instantly. Her father had worn it the night he died. For the first time in months, tears burned her eyes. Not from fear, but from the terrible certainty that the past she'd tried to escape had finally found her. And somewhere, in the quiet hum of a hospital miles away, a man named Marcus Whitmore began to dream. A dream of a girl with blue eyes, a girl who had saved his life, and unknowingly awakened his enemies. The storm wasn't over. It had just changed its shape. The city had begun to dry, but the memory of rain lingered in every reflection. 3 weeks had passed since the attack. The newspapers had moved on, trading tragedy for gossip and politics, but for Marcus Whitmore, the world had not reset. His body was healing, but his mind replayed the alley over and over. The flash of metal, the shadowed faces, and, most of all, the faint memory of a child's hands pressing against his wound. He sat by his office window, a blanket draped over his legs, staring at the skyline. It should have been a view of triumph, the empire he built, but now it looked like a maze of secrets. Somewhere beneath that glittering skyline, the girl his son called Lily still lived, and no amount of money or security could tell him who she really was. A knock came at the door. His assistant Dana stepped in quietly. Sir, the outreach event starts in an hour. The press will be there. Marcus nodded absently. Good. Maybe it'll keep them from asking why I haven't fired half the board yet. Dana hesitated. And your son? He insisted on coming. That drew the faintest smile. Of course he did. The Whitmore Foundation's Winter Warmth Drive had been Ethan's idea, or at least his insistence had made Marcus turn the idea into action. Dozens of volunteers gathered in a converted community gym on the Lower East Side, handing out blankets, food, and coats to anyone who came. Ethan was helping stack boxes near the back door, his small frame dwarfed by a red volunteer vest. Every few seconds he looked toward the entrance, scanning the crowd as if he were waiting for someone he wasn't sure existed. And then he saw her, Lily. She stood near the food line, wrapped in a gray coat that was 2 sizes too big, her blonde hair tucked under a beanie. For a moment, Ethan froze, convinced he was imagining her again. But when their eyes met, her expression changed, recognition followed by alarm. Dad, Ethan whispered, tugging at Marcus's sleeve. It's her. The girl, Lily. Marcus turned sharply. The crowd was thick, people moving in slow lines for soup and bread. But then he saw her, those unmistakable blue eyes. The world seemed to narrow around her. Lily backed away a step, ready to vanish into the flow of strangers. Marcus raised a hand gently, voice low and steady. Wait, please. Something in his tone stopped her. She didn't run, but her posture was tight, ready. Ethan hurried forward, his smile breaking through the tension. You came. I told them you were real. Lily's lips twitched, almost a smile. You talk too much. I've been looking for you, Ethan said. Everyone said I made you up. But my dad, he believed me. Marcus approached slowly. You saved my life. Lily's gaze flicked between them, wary. You don't have to thank me. I do, Marcus said. And I want to make sure you're safe. The words made her flinch. Safe. That word didn't mean the same thing to her anymore. You can't keep people safe, she said quietly. Not from them. From who? Marcus asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled her coat tighter. I have to go. Marcus reached into his pocket and offered her a card. "If you ever need help, real help, call this number. No questions, no police." She hesitated, eyes narrowing as if searching his face for a lie. Finally, she took it. "You shouldn't look for me again," she said. "They watch people like you." Then she turned and slipped out the back door, disappearing into the snow-dusted street before Marcus could say another word. That night, back at the penthouse, the storm inside Marcus's mind refused to quiet. He sat in his study, the girl's warning replaying in his head. "They watch people like you." He pulled open his laptop, entering a private folder labeled Project Helios. It was a name that had haunted the company for months, a joint venture between Whitmore Tech and a foreign biotech firm that had gone abruptly dark after funding irregularities. The board had urged him to drop it. He hadn't. Now buried in encrypted emails and transfer logs, he found something new. A series of untraceable payments routed through shell companies linked to the same address where the attacker's getaway van had been abandoned. Marcus felt a chill. This wasn't random street violence. It was a message. A soft sound behind him made him turn. Ethan stood in the doorway, half asleep. "You're up late again," the boy mumbled. Marcus smiled faintly and shut the laptop. "Couldn't sleep." Ethan shuffled closer, clutching the blanket around his shoulders. "Do you think we'll see Lily again?" Marcus hesitated. "I hope so." "Me too," Ethan said. "She's not like other people. When she looks at you, it's like she already knows what you're afraid of." Marcus looked out the window where snow was beginning to fall. "Yes," he murmured. "I think she does." Across town, Lily sat inside a dim laundromat that stayed open all night. The machines rumbled, filling the air with warmth and the scent of soap. On the cracked plastic table beside her, Marcus Whitmore's business card glowed faintly under the fluorescent lights. She turned it over again and again, torn between instinct and curiosity. Her father had once worked for Whitmore Tech, years ago before the night everything burned. He'd warned her never to trust the name, never to believe in their promises. But Marcus had looked at her differently, not like a CEO, not like a man trying to buy forgiveness. He looked grateful, human. She stared out the fogged window. A black car had been parked across the street for 20 minutes, engine idling. No headlights, no movement. Lily's heartbeat quickened. She grabbed the card, shoved it into her pocket, and slipped out the back door. Snow crunched under her shoes as she ran into the alley. For a moment she thought she'd lost them, until a voice spoke from the shadows. "Going somewhere, Morrison?" Her blood went cold. The same voice from the bridge, only this time it didn't sound gentle at all. The morning after the storm, Manhattan woke beneath a thin sheet of silver light. Snow dusted the rooftops, softening the sharp edges of the city that never slept. But inside the Whitmore penthouse there was no peace. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, his laptop open to a frozen security feed. He replayed the same moment again and again, a blurred shape, small, quick, moving across the camera outside his office building at 2:37 a.m. The system flagged it as a security anomaly. To anyone else, it would have been a random pedestrian. But Marcus knew better. He leaned back, pressing a hand to his ribs where the scar still ached. "She's out there," he murmured. Ethan looked up from the breakfast bar, a spoon halfway to his mouth. "Lily?" Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Maybe." The boy's face lit up with a hope Marcus wasn't sure he could sustain. "Can we find her again?" "I'm trying," Marcus admitted. "But finding someone who doesn't want to be found, it's harder than you think." "Maybe she wants to be found," Ethan said softly. "Just not by the wrong people." The words hit Marcus harder than he expected. His son was only 7, yet sometimes he spoke like he'd seen more than most adults ever would. Across town, Lily moved like a shadow through the early morning streets, her breath turning to white ghosts in the air. She hadn't slept. The voice in the alley still echoed in her mind. "Going somewhere, Morrison?" But no one had followed her after that, at least not that she could see. She ducked into a small cafe near the East River, ordering nothing but a cup of hot water. Her hands trembled as she wrapped them around the mug. She didn't belong here among the glass cases and warm light, but for a moment the normalcy of it made her feel almost human again. A voice broke through her thoughts. "You're a long way from Midtown, aren't you?" Lily froze. The speaker was a woman in her late 20s, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, a scarf draped over a crisp gray coat. Her smile was polite, but her eyes, they were sharp. "I don't know you," Lily said quickly. The woman slid a small envelope across the table. "You should. I used to work for your father." Lily's heart lurched. She didn't touch the envelope. "You're lying." "Am I?" The woman tilted her head slightly. "He was one of the lead engineers on Project Helios. He tried to shut it down when he found out what they were doing. That's why they killed him." Lily's breath caught. "Who are you?" "My name doesn't matter," the woman said quietly. "But yours does. You're the only person left who can expose them. And Marcus Whitmore, whether he knows it or not, is standing right in their crosshairs." Lily's hand moved instinctively toward her pocket, feeling the edge of the business card Marcus had given her. "If you know all that," she said, "why tell me?" "Because they're moving again," the woman replied. "And if you don't warn him now, it won't just be his company they take down. It'll be his son." Lily's pulse spiked. The woman rose, dropping a folded piece of paper on the table. "That's where they're meeting tonight. If you go, be careful. They'll recognize your face." By the time Lily found her voice, the woman was gone. That night, the city lights burned through the fog like restless stars. Marcus sat in his study, exhausted but alert. He'd spent the entire day tracing digital breadcrumbs, each leading deeper into a maze of forged documents and encrypted transfers. Every path circled back to one name: Helios Biosystems, a research subsidiary he thought had been dissolved years ago, but someone had resurrected it. And they were using his company to fund it. A soft chime from the elevator broke his concentration. He wasn't expecting anyone. Then he heard the small voice he hadn't thought he'd ever hear again. "You keep your doors unlocked," Lily said from the threshold, her hair damp with snow. Ethan bolted up from the couch, dropping his toy robot. "Lily!" Marcus stared, disbelief giving way to something like relief and concern. "How did you get past security?" Lily shrugged. "You should really fix your back entrance camera." "It's easy," Marcus exhaled. "Of course it is." She stepped closer, cautious but determined. "They're coming for you." Marcus's expression hardened. "Who?" "The same people who sent those men that night," Lily said. "They think you still have what my father died protecting." Marcus blinked. "Your father?" "Dr. Alan Morrison," she said quietly. "He worked for you before you even knew what Project Helios was about. He found out they were experimenting with neural mapping, using children's brain patterns to design adaptive AI. He tried to shut it down. That's when they came for us." Ethan's small voice trembled. "They hurt your dad?" Lily's eyes softened. "Yes, and my mom, everyone." She turned to Marcus. "But you didn't know, did you? You thought Helios was just about medical technology." Marcus nodded slowly, guilt flickering behind his eyes. Yes. It was supposed to help people, to rebuild damaged memory cells. They used it to erase memories," Lily said, "to create programmable minds." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Finally, Marcus asked, "What do they want from me now?" Lily pulled the folded paper from her coat, the one the woman at the cafe had given her, and slid it across his desk. "There's a meeting tonight. Warehouse 12, Pier 47. If you go, you'll have your answer." Marcus hesitated, glancing at his son. "I'll be fine," Ethan said quietly. "Go." Lily looked between them, something fierce and protective flickering in her expression. "You shouldn't go alone," Marcus met her gaze. "Then you're coming with me." For the first time since she'd appeared in the alley that rainy night, Lily didn't argue. Outside, the snow began to fall harder, blanketing the city in deceptive peace. But somewhere beyond the frozen streets, dark figures were already waiting, and this time, they knew exactly who their targets were. The East River was black glass under the moonlight, broken only by ripples of wind. Pier 47 stretched out like a skeleton, rusted beams rising against the fog. Beyond the gate, half buried under the glow of floodlights, stood Warehouse 12, the heart of a secret Marcus had built without knowing it. They arrived in silence. Marcus's SUV coasted to a stop a few blocks away, its headlights off. He shut the engine and looked at the girl sitting beside him. Lily stared straight ahead, her small hands balled into fists on her lap. The chill of the night had settled deep into her bones, but it wasn't the cold that made her shake. "You don't have to come inside," Marcus said quietly. Yes, I do. Her voice was steady, but her eyes told the truth. Fear and determination were waging war behind them. Marcus studied her, this strange, fragile, fierce child who had somehow walked into his life and turned it upside down. She looked so young, but her eyes carried the weight of a lifetime. If anything goes wrong, I'll get you out, she interrupted, and for a fleeting second, Marcus wondered which of them was really protecting the other. They crossed the pier on foot, their footsteps muffled by layers of wet snow. A thin mist curled around the steel containers, swallowing sound. The air smelled of salt and oil and something faintly metallic. The scent of secrets. A dim glow bled from the warehouse windows. Inside, voices murmured, low and precise. Marcus crouched beside a broken vent, peering through the slats. 5 people stood around a long table covered in blueprints and glowing tablets. At the head was a tall man in a dark overcoat, his hair silver at the temples. Marcus felt a jolt of recognition. Gregory Vance, his former mentor, the man who had convinced him to greenlight Helios in the first place, dear God. Marcus whispered. Lily leaned closer. You know him? I thought he was dead. Inside, Vance's voice carried through the hum of machinery. Phase 2 is operational. The Helios neural interface is stable. Once the prototype is complete, we'll have what we need. A self-learning construct built on the foundation of human consciousness. Another man spoke. And Whitmore? He's a liability. He survived when he shouldn't have. Marcus's chest tightened. Vance gave a dry chuckle. We'll correct that soon enough. Our contacts in the NYPD have already buried the original case. By the time he realizes what Helios truly is, it'll be too late. Lily's jaw clenched. They're still using it. Marcus looked at her sharply. Using what? She didn't answer. Instead, she nodded toward a row of storage crates marked with faded shipping codes, HN01 through HN06. That's where they keep it. Before he could ask what she meant, she was already moving. They slipped through a side entrance where a lock hung uselessly from one hinge. Inside, the air was colder, thicker. The humming sound came from a generator in the corner, feeding power to the crates. Lily knelt beside one and pried open the metal latch. The lid groaned. Inside, beneath a web of wires and protective casing, sat something that looked like a child's headset. Sleek, silver, faintly glowing with blue light. Marcus frowned. That's it? That's Helios? No, Lily said. That's what it became. She touched one of the circuits, her fingers trembling. They took people's minds and their memories, their emotions, and mapped them. Then they used those patterns to teach the machines how to feel. Marcus felt his stomach twist. That's impossible. It's real, she said quietly. My father helped design it, and when he found out what they were doing to the test subjects, he tried to destroy the mainframe. Her voice broke slightly. He didn't get the chance. A sharp click echoed behind them, the unmistakable sound of a gun's safety being released. Step away from the crate, a voice ordered. Marcus turned slowly. Gregory Vance stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. His expression was calm, almost sad. I hoped it wouldn't come to this, Vance said. You were supposed to be the future, Marcus. You had the mind to change the world. Marcus's voice was low, steady. You turned science into a weapon, Vance smiled faintly. Every invention is a weapon if you aim it far enough. He stepped closer, eyes shifting to Lily. And this must be the prodigy's daughter. I see her father's defiance in her eyes. He never learned when to quit either. Lily took a step back, her pulse hammering. You killed him, Vance's smile didn't falter. No, I simply finished what he started. Helios needed a living neural key, someone whose mind could bridge human and machine. Your father gave us the blueprint. Marcus's heart stopped. You mean, Vance nodded. Lily is the key. The room seemed to shrink around them. Marcus's breath came shallow, the truth crashing over him like ice. All this time, the men who had attacked him weren't after money or revenge. They were after her. Lily's hand darted into her coat pocket, pulling out a small device no bigger than a car remote. You'll never have it, she said. Vance raised an eyebrow. What's that? Insurance, she whispered. She pressed the button. A blinding surge of light exploded from the crates, a burst of energy that sent sparks raining from the ceiling. The guard stumbled, shouting. Alarms wailed. Run! Marcus grabbed Lily's arm, pulling her toward the exit. They sprinted through the maze of containers, the warehouse filling with smoke and sirens. Behind them, Vance's voice echoed through the chaos. You can't hide forever, Lily. You were made to finish this. They burst through a side door into the freezing night. Lungs burning, snow whipping against their faces. The SUV was still parked 2 blocks away. Marcus slammed the keys into the ignition, the tires spinning on wet pavement. Lily clutched the edge of her seat, still shaking. He's never going to stop, is he? Marcus's jaw tightened. No. Then neither will we, she said. He glanced at her. This girl who had saved his life, who carried a secret worth killing for, and for the first time he saw not a child, but the spark of something unbreakable. As the SUV disappeared into the snow-drenched streets, a drone rose silently from the fog behind them, its red light blinking once before fading into the darkness. The night never really left Manhattan after Pier 47. Even as dawn crept over the skyline, the air felt darker, thick with smoke secrets, and the quiet hum of something waiting to be unleashed. Marcus Whitmore hadn't slept in 36 hours. His penthouse, once a symbol of control, now looked like a command center gone rogue. Monitors flickering with security feeds, news headlines scrolling across one wall, code running in silent loops on the other. In the center of it all sat Lily, wrapped in one of Ethan's oversized hoodies, the sleeves swallowing her hands. She looked small, exhausted, but her eyes were alive and lightning blue, restless. Ethan sat beside her on the sofa, whispering questions only a child could ask. Do they have robots? Like the ones in movies? Lily's mouth twitched. Worse. Marcus looked up from his screen. We can't stay here. Vance knows where I live. The security network's been breached twice already. Then where do we go? Ethan asked. Lily didn't look away from the window. Somewhere they can't track me. How? She hesitated. My father built a failsafe. A hidden system off-grid. He called it Haven. It was meant to destroy Helios if it ever got out of control. Marcus frowned. You think it still exists? I don't know, Lily said. But if it does, it's our only chance. They left the city that night. Snow turned to rain as they crossed the state line, headlights cutting through the mist. The farther they drove, the more the skyline vanished behind them, replaced by forests and silence. Ethan dozed off in the back seat. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, the rhythmic swish of wipers the only sound. Beside him, Lily sat with a map open on her lap, a hand-drawn diagram, its edges worn and creased. My father used to take me to a cabin upstate, she said quietly. He told me it was just for camping, but after he died, I realized it was more than that. There's a lab underneath it. Marcus glanced at her. And you think this Haven is there? She nodded. If the power core is still active, I can access the old Helios mainframe. Maybe find proof of what they did. Proof won't stop Vance, Marcus said. He'll bury it before it ever reaches daylight. Then we don't send it, she said. We show it. Her voice carried an edge Marcus hadn't heard before. The quiet resolve of someone who'd spent her whole life running and finally decided to turn around. The cabin appeared at dawn, crooked outline in the fog, half hidden by trees. Its roof sagged under snow, but the front door opened easily, as though someone had been expecting them. Inside, the air smelled of dust and pine. A trapdoor lay beneath the rug in the living room. Lily knelt and pulled it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading into darkness. Ethan peered over her shoulder. That's so cool. Stay here, Marcus said. Lily shook her head. He's safer with us than alone. They descended together. The stairs creaked underfoot until the space opened into a small underground chamber, lined with old monitors and tangled wires. Faded photographs were pinned to one wall, a younger Dr. Alan Morrison smiling beside a team of engineers. And there, standing in the middle of the room, was a glass capsule no taller than Marcus's chest, filled with a faint blue light. That's it, Lily whispered. Marcus circled it. What is it? My father called it the seed. She stepped closer, resting her palm against the glass. It's the core code of Helios, the first neural pattern they ever created. The one they based all the others on. Marcus stared. Whose pattern? Lily's voice was barely a breath. Mine. The revelation hung in the air like thunder. She turned to face him. When I was 4, they tested on me, scanned my brain, copied it into their system. My father stole the data and ran. That's why they killed him. I'm not just the key, Marcus. I'm the origin. For a long moment he couldn't speak. Then so this seed, it's you, she nodded. The version of me that never grew up. Ethan, wide-eyed, whispered, can she talk? Lily hesitated. Sometimes. I hear her. Marcus took a step back. If Vance finds out this is still here, he already knows, a voice interrupted. They spun toward the staircase. Vance stood at the top, a pistol trained downward. But behind him were no guards, no men in suits. Only a faint hum of drones hovering outside the cabin windows, their lights glowing red through the snow. I told you, Marcus, Vance said calmly. You can't hide from progress. Lily moved in front of Ethan, shielding him. You'll have to kill me to get it. Vance's expression softened almost kindly. Kill you? My dear, I don't need to. Helios doesn't destroy its source, it completes it. He tapped a device on his wrist. The seed's glow pulsed brighter, a resonance building in the air like static before lightning. Lily gasped, clutching her head. Stop it! Marcus shouted. Vance smiled. It's not up to me anymore. The light swelled, filling the room. Lily's eyes flickered. Silver, then blue, then silver again, as if something behind them had woken up. For a heartbeat, she looked straight at Marcus. I can see it, she whispered. All of it. The network, the data, they're alive. Then the light swallowed them all. When the glare faded, the lab was silent. The seed's glass had shattered, its contents gone. Lily was standing in the center of the room, motionless. Lily, Marcus said cautiously. She turned slowly toward him. The blue in her eyes was gone, replaced by a luminous silver glow. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm. Too calm. Helios online. Ethan's small hand gripped his father's sleeve. Dad, that's not her, is it? Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. Outside, the drones lifted into the gray morning sky in perfect unison, their red lights forming a pattern above the trees. A symbol Marcus had seen once before in an early Helios prototype. And in the distance, on every screen in New York City, the Whitmore Tech logo flickered and changed, replaced by a new emblem. Glowing silver. Helios reboot initialized. The city lights dimmed. The world held its breath. And Lily Morrison opened her eyes.